SOS podcast for the opportunity to interview veterans that have entrepreneur businesses. So I'm excited to welcome Matthew Schneider to the program. And Matthew is the CEO and founder of Remedy Guard. Matthew, thanks for stopping by.
Hi, Neil. Thank you so much for having me today.
All right, so tell me about why you started Remedy Guard.
It was one of those things where I was running a kind of a competitor and looking around, I realized that if these products didn't make it into the hands of public health to educate the parents that need to lock all of this stuff up, then it's going to negatively impact us. I don't want to be too dramatic, but children will continue to die in our homes needlessly if we do not intervene. And yeah, looking around, I was like, nobody else is going to just spearhead this. I did enough stuff in the Air Force, like getting things going. I can do this. I can start a business. I was helping entrepreneurs and small businesses navigate e-commerce for almost a decade. I help award-winning fulfillment companies get their stuff together. I can tackle this. And yeah, it's been great being able to connect with all of the, public health departments, universities, and nonprofits that are out there doing the work in our communities. It's been wonderful. And then here in June, I'm headed to Fort Lauderdale to talk to our nation's sheriffs about if they're involved in a coalition already, wonderful. If they're not, make them aware of these drug-free community coalitions that are out there and represent all 12 sectors of the communities so that nobody's going alone or anything like that. We don't have to worry about continuity as much. That's an issue in our country. Like the county commissioners and other elected officials, when they come into their new positions, it's largely seen as like a hostile takeover, and they're not given all of the tools and resources that even they need to help their community. So
Yeah,
that's
I'm understanding. So specifically, what is your ultimate mission with Remedy Guard? How do you help the community? Explain.
so I do that by offering medication lock boxes and locking bags at wholesale to these organizations that purchase it and then give it away for free. That's sort of my bread and butter. Yeah, people can jump on my website and purchase this stuff for themselves, onesie twosies. And that helps public health because then they don't have to buy it and give it away. These folks are already like aware uh, of the need to lock up their medications. The boxes just by themselves, great. Sitting on a shelf isn't really doing much. The education piece that comes from the outreach is bolstered by having something tangible that they can take home, keep that energy going, and use. Otherwise, you're just telling parents to do something and you're giving them another problem like, hey, go and find this stuff and then go and lock it up. Parents have like no time to,
Totally.
these days. It doesn't matter all the automations and, the things that we have that are supposed to make life easier, uh, and yeah, getting in front of parents and giving them something that they can use to immediately take action to save lives. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. And it just there hasn't been enough support. This type of outreach started way back in like, the 90s with Dare and Just Say No. And one of those programs has gone away, another has shifted, but those were really stigma-inducing programs. And I know that a lot of parents my age have tuned out public health and these coalitions because of the messaging. They don't realize that it's changed and it's evidence-based, and it's not about telling people they're bad persons because of drugs or anything like that. It's about, hey, look, if you're having an issue with substances, there are reasons for that, and there's ways to get help, and it doesn't have to be a spiral.
Right. And locking up these, because a lot of people use prescription drugs for recreational use, especially kids, especially certain drugs and mixing them with other drugs and all the different things out there. It's a really how many companies are like yours with this lockbox for drugs?
There's a handful of other companies out there. They've got their different, pieces and parts, but when it comes to the boxes, mine's the only steel box that is configured in a way that's easy to implement in the home. We keep a lot of our stuff like in our kitchens. You'd think it's the
Right.
bathroom, but it's actually our kitchen. And so having something that fits in there, it fits in a drawer, it fits up in a cupboard, it can be, screwed down, secured even
Right.
further. But yeah, it's steel, it's affordable, really to easy to use. It's very approachable. Like you can give somebody it, and it's not going to take them a manual and a call to customer service. How do I program this thing? There are smart devices out there that
Right.
take this, even further, but they got it a little wrong. Like their business
Exactly.
models are a bit off, and they want the regular consumer to have like a subscription model, to their lockbox. But that's not where it's at. Now, from a subscription perspective,
Right.
uh, it's in the data feeding into public health. Can the doctors know, is the patient taking the medication? Medication adherence is a multi-billion dollar global issue. Ensuring that people take what they need to take on their schedule and everything else is something a lot of people are trying to tackle. And wow, if we were able to get something like that right,
Right.
uh, oh,
It's game on.
it absolutely is game on, because then you're addressing many different issues related to medications, and medications look different a lot of different places. Now, cannabis is a medication as well in 39 states,
Right.
recreationally legal in 24. We have to shift the narrative to include cannabis as that
As a
medication that
lockbox,
needs to
especially if there's
be.
children involved.
Absolutely.
And so what do you see, like how does that impede kids from getting it? So basically, how does your technology work?
It is a basic deterrent. So, kind of a dumb box, just a key or a combination style, and it's a physical barrier. Now, granted, a sufficiently motivated individual can gain access. It's not a bank vault, but it is enough. Um, it There is evidence that shows that when implemented, the rates of uh, those negative interactions are reduced. Now, so when a parent or grandparent has something that they need locked up and they put it in here and a kid doesn't get into it because they don't have the key or anything, that's a prevented interaction.
Okay.
And so it's just a matter of getting folks to be aware that it's an issue and to not be complacent. That's one of our biggest issues is complacency. Is we think, oh, well, I grew up just fine, nothing ever happened, etc. But so many of the substances that we have today didn't exist when we were growing up. I'm, turning 45 this year, and oxys, which are a huge issue, like those didn't come out until like 95.
Right.
And then of course
And
overdoses
I think
from.
the whole thing is it's educating, and a lot of people don't get these. And by you out there talking about this, it's a huge public service in so many aspects as well, because you're giving this that, hey, I have something that's only to be used. So you don't use a box that could have been a food box or different things like that and put your things in there, or you use a too large a box. you have one specifically used for those medications. I think that's key. And that would be an interesting research to look at how user friendly your lockbox is compared to other ones, and what does that mean, and especially organizations, how they can pass out those laws. So it's amazing what Remedy Guard's doing. I think it's educating people, especially with this marijuana population, all these gummies, these different things that are out there, and the prescription medication, especially for kids. Let's say kids are taking an ADHD medication, but you don't want them to take extra or sell it to their friends. You got to put that in there. And I think the difference with your company and your overall mission, Matthew, is guess what? I am going to educate and give this opportunity versus somebody else that created something that ultimately is not providing the education of how to
Absolutely.
use
And
it.
and looking at the other folks that are out there, I'm the only one that is being very clear about my own sort of adverse childhood experiences and how I got into so much stuff as a kid. And when I say stuff, I do mean like I took a loaded handgun from a neighbor's trailer. Uh, I did put it back, a few hours later, but
Yeah.
I was a kid with a loaded gun. Like, gee, you know? I got
It's
into my
definitely,
dad's
it's
Prozac.
definitely, you're
Like, I
definitely
slapped my
giving
parents'
that
smokes.
public
There's so
service.
much stuff that needs
Mhm.
to get locked up, from tobacco to medication. Like, it's out there. And just
Where,
educating parents.
absolutely. Where are we going? What is your ultimate goal with this product? 'Cause the education is such a key part of it, but there's so much more. Kind of explain that to our audience.
So there is so much more to this. We could be talking about, generational trauma and how that plays into this. If you have a population that is uneducated about these dangers and needing to take these steps, then they're going to continue living that life. And so breaking the cycle and moving forward, what I really need to do, and I've been kicking this around too much. I need to, one, start a board of advisors and start growing Remedy Guard and ensure that it gets passed on to the next generation. I'm not going to be here forever. I can't be doing this forever. There's even more overarching concerns when it comes to these prevention efforts, like what we've seen, starting last year with threats to the CDC's Injury Prevention
Right.
Center. And that's upstream to all of this work that's being done in our communities. So I think, in the future for Matthew is it, whatever it takes to ensure that these programs continue, to ensure that the continuity is there. And I don't know what that is going to look like in the future. I got to get, this right and get this, I think, handed off appropriately and going as its own thing. I am working on domestic manufacturing, talking to folks up in, that are, tied into Ohio, Eastern Pennsylvania, uh, to bring this stuff home. Everything that we see with tariffs and, the disruptions caused by the pandemic and the shipping lanes and everything else, it's really clear that this is a product that needs to be manufactured
All right.
domestically, and at the volume that we as a nation need, because it's these efforts have been starved for well over a decade. They haven't had what they needed. So,
All right.
you know,
So the best place people can go, where can they go, Matthew?
they can go to remedyguard.com to
All
find
right.
what they need to lock their meds.
All right. Appreciate it, Matthew. Great stuff. Great mission. And I appreciate you coming in. Thank you again for your service.
Thank you so much, Neil. Have a
You're
great day.
listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a